welcome to another episode of Stuff in Front of My Little Amplifier Theater. What I was going to do this time was demonstrate a pedal, walk you through the schematic and show you the mods that I made and let you hear what those do. The pedal in question I've called a Phunkpunk. It is basically a modified Electro-Harmonix Bassballs circuit. An excellent circuit for modding, lots of possibilities, and as you'll hear shortly, a very wide palette of sounds. The schematic I'm using is one whose link you'll find in the text accompanying this video. This is drawn by Alex Petrini of, I believe it's pronounced Topopiccioni Electronics. I've highlighted some areas in pink, and we'll talk about these momentarily. What you see here is the Bassballs is two filter sections, two bandpass filter sections, one here, that sweep up and then down again, and they're swept by in accordance with the intensity of the pick attack. Signal comes in here, it's buffered. That buffered signal usually goes to the filters here, but it also goes to gain stage here, which is rectified by this diode, and the rectified signal, that is only the positive going part of it, is smoothed out by this capacitor to ground right here, and then it is fed via this path to a pair of trim pots, one here and one here, that are normally on the board, on the Bassballs board. And each of those drives a transistor, which acts like basically like a resistor to ground that tunes the filter. So as that resistance changes, as it gets smaller, the filter section will sweep upwards. The output of the outputs of the two filters are mixed together, and that goes to the output here. Now, one of the things that the Bassballs does that's different is it has what they call a fuzz signal, and that comes from the output of the gain stage here. It uses a 1458 dual op amp, which distorts when you push it a little too hard in an interesting way, and Electro-Harmonix chose to use that distorted signal as what they call a fuzz signal. Okay, I'll start to tell you now what I did to it that was different. First of all, these trim pots here are adjusted usually at the factory to provide a very characteristic kind of swept sound. It sounds a little bit like a talk box, one of those things where you use a tube in your mouth. However, what they do is they stagger the two filter sections apart by a certain amount. What I elected to do was I took one of the trim pots and I mounted it on the chassis. The lower filter section here, the bass filter, is fixed, but the treble filter can be made to start higher up than the bass filter section. Another thing I did was I replaced these two fixed mixing resistors with a kind of a pan pot that adjusts the balance so that you can have more of the bass filter or more of the treble filter. You can't, the way I set it up, you can't just have one or the other, but you can have a lot more of one than the other. And you'll hear what that sounds like momentarily. A third thing I did was this resistor here, and you'll see it on the schematic if you're smart enough to look it up. This sets how quickly this particular capacitor drains off. So when the value of this resistor is very, very high, it takes a lot longer for this capacitor to drain off, and so the sweep will appear to decay very, very slowly. If you make this resistance smaller, it will decay faster. What you'll find is that a very fast decay sounds much more like a synthesizer actually than like a guitar effect. I've replaced the 330K resistor here with I think something like a 47K resistor and either a 500K or 1 meg variable resistance, a pot that is. The final thing I did here was this fuzz output. I never particularly liked. The other thing is the volume of it depends on how high you set the sensitivity of the unit, and sometimes it provides way too much output level. So I replaced this resistor here with some clipping diodes. You have to be very careful about the level, about the diode types that you pick, so that the level is just right. But it provides a much more pleasing distortion sound. So having stepped through the circuit, let's give a listen. Okay, I'm playing a P90 pickup here. Okay, that's bridge position. Now I have the mix control here, adjusted so that it's only the bass filter. I'll adjust it so that it's about 50-50. Now let's turn it up so that it's mostly the treble filter. Set the decay fairly long here. You can hear it takes a while to settle down. I mentioned about the staggering of the filters. Here I'll move the upper filter downwards. There's a fairly wide range here. Now I'll add in some more of the bass filter. Not so much more of the traditional Bassballs sound. If I make the decay faster, you get the most pronounced and synth-like decay if you just do a little bit of muting at the bridge with the butt of your hand. And we'll if you increase the decay, you get the standard slow sweep. put a little bit of overdrive feeding into the input signal. That's mostly the lower filter. That's the upper filter. If you naturally with these things, if you turn the sensitivity down all the way, oops, you can't turn it down all the way, but turn it down enough so that you don't get much sweep, and you can even use it as to essentially color the sound of your overdrive. It becomes like a fixed filter. So there you go. There's my my Phunkpunk, and that gives you an idea about what you can do with this terrific little pedal.